So, welcome to the risk management class, everybody. For those who were able to join currently, and then those that will be watching this video later. Benefit for those that are currently here, you guys will be able to ask some questions and stuff. But essentially, what I wanted to do is give you guys kind of a rundown of the risk management that you guys should be implementing in your trading when it comes to futures trading. So, we'll go ahead and start. A lot of you guys have heard a lot of the stuff that I will mention throughout the lives and things like that. This is just kind of putting it all together, putting it all in one place, especially for those people that haven't heard every single thing and haven't been able to join every single live. So, with that, we'll go ahead and get started. One of the biggest things that I always try to mention to you guys when it comes to trading futures, especially, or I mean, the nice thing is you can apply this to pretty much everything in regards to trading, is that survival is the key, right? When it comes to trading these prop firms, when it comes to trading in general, you don't want to prioritize hitting your goal every single day. That's not going to be realistic. You're not going to be able to hit your goals every single day. That's something that is just something you have to accept, right? And once you're able to finally accept that, you're going to be able to kind of have that mindset for survival. And when you have that mindset, you start to look at the market a little bit differently, right? You're going to start understanding that, okay, this is not my conditions, or this is my conditions. You know, this is when I'm going to really put that size on. This is when I'm going to back off and things like that, which kind of leads into the first topic that I wanted to talk about is going to be market structure. Now, a lot of you guys have heard me say this in the VC pretty much on a daily basis, but market structure, I'm going to argue, is probably the most important, or market context is probably the most important thing, right? If you are aware of what your environment is, where your edge works, and what environment it's profitable in, and what environment it thrives in, and what environment it doesn't thrive in, and what environment it sucks in, you're really going to be able to be successful in trading, right? And this is where your risk management really comes into play. If you know that your environment, or the environment that you're currently watching for a trade, is something that's not your environment, you either don't trade that environment or you adjust your risk, right? And you'll see me doing that a lot in Globex. Globex is an environment that does have low volatility, low volume for the most part, right? So I do keep a reduced size when it comes to Globex compared to New York session. I've mentioned many times New York session is the ultimate session, especially for my strategy to be successful in. And that's why I have different sizing when it comes to New York session. Now, another thing to keep in mind is news, right? Market context also includes news. If we know that the market is waiting for something big, such as CPI, FOMC, any big announcement coming, you get that in the back of your mind that, all right, the market is going to start consolidating most likely and waiting for this event to occur, for the move to occur, right? And that's why it's important to have this market context in the back of your mind and know what's going on within the market, so that way you're able to size accordingly, you're able to adjust your risk accordingly for this stuff, and you're able to know when the market is waiting, quote unquote, for a move. So that's why I always try to, in the morning, mention that, the prep that you guys should be doing in the morning for the most part is at least, at the minimum, understanding what's going on in the day, if there is something big coming up news wise, and then adjusting your risk accordingly, right? One thing you guys will start to notice a lot of the times is a big move is not going to occur prior to big news. Okay, this isn't always going to be true, but for the most part, you'll see that this will be true when it does come to trading in the NASDAQ market. Now, the next thing that I want to mention is going to be your guys' sizing. I always get a lot of questions about sizing. I always get a lot of questions for people going like, okay, is this appropriate? Am I going too heavy, etc. The 50K challenge account that RCC and I created is based for you guys in terms of the sizing that you have in there. We mentioned the sizing, the risk management that we're going to be doing in terms of the amount of trades we're going to be taking, where we're going to be trimming, etc. And all of that is something that you also should have in place. If you don't have your rules, and I'll go over this a little bit towards the end, but if you don't have rules in place, then you're not going to be able to be successful and consistent within trading, right? It's the most basic thing, but if you don't have it, you're just not going to be able to get what you are looking for out of trading. And the most important thing, and we'll go over this a little bit more in depth, is if you have these rules, you have to follow them, right? And that's where these prop firms that have these additional tools will really come in handy. And we'll go over a little bit of that as well. So position sizing, as I mentioned, is going to be very, very important, especially depending on the account size that you have. Now, a lot of people tend to try to pass these accounts in a couple of trades, right? And you got to understand, when you're doing that, yes, it is gambling. If you're not going to be practicing the same rules and the same way of trading that you are going to be doing on your funded account in your practice account, it's not realistic, right? And you're lying to yourself at the end of the day and kind of setting yourself up for failure, right? So it's very important to make sure that you do size accordingly for the account that you have. Make sure you have these things planned out prior to entering the trade, so that way when it comes to your setup triggering, or it comes to, you know, if you're following my trades triggering, that you're not sitting there wasting time deciding what sizing you should use and then accidentally end up using the wrong sizing, and next thing you know, you blew up your account, right? So sizing is very important. And a good saying that I learned about this is that your stop determines your size. So a little bit of context on that is, let's say you guys have a 50K account. Your loss limit is 2,000. Your profit target is 3,000. Now, if you set a goal for the day of being, all right, I'm going to try to aim for $300 a day in profits, $300 a day in losses. If you're using 5 MNQ, you're going to hit that relatively quickly if you're doing 20-point stops and 20-point trims, right? And you're not going to give yourself the opportunity to be able to take multiple trades or to be able to actually scale your account. So size accordingly, guys. If you do use 1 to 2 MNQ, you know, that's a good starting point to get yourself comfortable with trading. And eventually you do want to size up. You don't want to be stuck using 1 to 2. That will take a long time. The next thing is going to be your guys' daily loss limits. A lot of people don't have these set from what I see. Please make sure you guys put your own daily loss limits into place. Again, survival is key. If you don't have rules, if you don't have parameters for yourself to stop, you're not going to know when to stop. And then you're just going to be gambling at the end of the day. So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, a lot of these prop firms do have tools that are going to be very helpful for you guys in kind of holding yourself accountable when it comes to your rules. And this is where you can use the lockout features and enforcement of some of these prop firms like Top Step. They have the daily limit, loss limit that you can have, the daily profit target that you can have, and then you can also put a trailing drawdown in there as well. So if you know that you're the type of person that tends to give profit back after you've hit your target, doesn't stop for the day after you've hit your target. That could be for the upside or for the downside, right? You hit your minus 400 or minus 300 loss target for the day, and you know that you're not going to stop there. Utilize these lockouts to really hold yourself accountable, and that'll help you build that consistency, help you train yourself to follow your rules. Another thing is that a lot of you guys do use different prop firms than I do. So please make sure that you guys are aware of if you have a trailing drawdown account. If you do have that, you have to learn to treat this a little bit differently. And what I mean by that is, if you have profits on this account, if you are in a trade and you are not locking those profits in, or you are having too wide profit stop losses, for example, when I take my first trim at 20 points, I move my stops to 2 points in profit. You should look to be a little bit more aggressive than that, anywhere from 10, maybe even 15, or even look to take full profit at the first target, because your goal is to get out of that trailing drawdown and pass that account, right? So in order to do that, you actually have to lock in profit. Nobody went broke taking profit. So make sure you guys, if you do have the trailing drawdown accounts, that you do that. Okay, so next thing. As I mentioned, we'll go over a little bit more over the rules a little bit later. So this is later. What I mean by the rules, guys, is please have these limits and things in place that are going to be telling you when to stop. Now, just having a daily loss limit and having a daily target for the day is not enough, right? As I mentioned, there's going to be days where you're not going to hit those things. So you need to have parameters in place that are more than one parameter to tell you when to stop. A good rule is, all right, if I have, 3 L's for the day, I'm going to stop trading for the day. Or if I have 2 losses for the day, I'll take a little bit of a break. Or, things like I'll trade a certain time session only. Make sure you do have more than one thing that is telling you when to stop. If you guys don't write your rules down and you're not having these rules in front of you when you're trading and you're not following them, there's no point in having them. You're just going to stay in a loop until you actually become consistent with following those rules. Discipline is very, very important when it comes to trading. And if you're not holding yourself accountable to these things, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're just not going to be successful when it comes to trading. And this does tie into psychology and over trading. I do go much more in depth on this in the mentorship and whatnot. I do pretty much tell every single person that TA is the easy part when it comes to trading, right? Looking at a chart, being able to read a chart, getting a strategy in place, those are the easiest things when it comes to trading. The hardest thing, in my opinion, when it comes to trading is the psychology. So you really have to learn and try to understand yourself and recognize what it is within yourself that causes the mistakes that you're making, right? The number one thing is when you're trying to solve a problem is identifying that problem. If you don't know what your problem is, you're not going to be able to solve it. So try to identify what your problems are, work towards solving them, putting things into place that are going to help you follow those rules and eventually solve those problems. A lot of people do ask me about scaling. Now, when it comes to scaling, what I've always recommended you guys to try and do is pass the account twice. So what I mean by that is you get your evaluation account. The 50K, we'll use that as an example. Your target is 3,000, right? So go for the 3,000, pass the account. Now you're at a funded account. You want to pass that as well. So get 3,000 on that account consistently using the same sizing and on the rules that you were using on the funded account. And then you can look to scale up because now you have built yourself a cushioning, right? When you're initially starting, you only have a $2,000 cushioning. When you do get to $3,000 profit, you do now have an additional $1,000 cushioning built for yourself. This allows you to scale. Now, when it comes to scaling, that doesn't mean double your size right away. If you're using something like 3MNQ, look to add 1. Try it with 1, see how that works, see how your mind can handle it, see how your psyche can handle it, and go from there. So that's pretty much it in terms of the risk management stuff that I did want to go over. Anybody that's in the current chat, if you guys have any questions, please ask in the trading chat, or if there's something that you do want me to go a little bit more over, we can also do that. I hope this was helpful, by the way. Again, the visuals, I literally just made ignore the visuals. It was more so the content that I wanted to get across. I think there is a voice chat as well. Okay, there you go. What's up, Stack? How you doing? What's going on? Happy trails. Go ahead and ask your guys' questions. This is the benefit that the people who are currently in this live call will have over the other people. So, question from Stacko is, what's the most amount of days you have hit daily loss limit and how do you deal with this feeling? I have hit daily loss limit quite a few times for I want to say maybe like a couple days in a row back in the day. And the way to get out of that feeling is really sitting back, and you have to be realistic with yourself, right? Typically speaking, when you sit and you start analyzing what it is that you're doing, you will come up with an answer in terms of what you're doing wrong, right? For me, it was not waiting for setups, not being patient. And again, once you identify what that problem is, then you can start to work towards fixing that, right? The most important thing is that you take a break. A break is the best thing that you can do for yourself if you are ever caught in a feeling like that, and giving yourself that time to reset. Reset mentally, reset emotionally, reset financially if that's a case for a lot of people. once you give yourself that ability to reset and come back with a fresh mind, that's when you can actually start to make improvements. But if you just try to reset within like a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, things like that, it's not realistic, right? You have to be truthful to yourself, and you have to recognize when it's time to take a break. Does that make sense, Daco? And something that kind of ties into that is when you guys get really successful and consistent with getting those payouts, you still have to keep in mind that everything still applies. What I mean by that is a lot of people end up getting what is known as the I might misquote this, inferiority complex in some terms, some trading terms. I forgot what it's called. Basically, you're in a high in which you think that every trade that you're taking is hitting, you're on a nice run. And what ends up happening is people just end up breaking the rules completely, right? They'll be like, all right, I'll oversize on this trade, or I add more size, and they end up oversizing, over trading, etc. So you don't want to start that tumble. Once you start and push that first domino down, it's very hard to get yourself back up. So if you can just prevent yourself from the get go, from any of this happening, then that's when you can really start to see those improvements. So a 50K account should not be taking more than anywhere from 1 to 4 trades a day. And the reason I say 1 to 4 trades a day is because this depends on how much you're going for in the account. If you are simply just waiting for A plus setups, you're only going to get a couple of those. If you want to throw a little bit of lottos in there, you can go ahead and throw those in there with that 1 to 4 ratio. It is a little bit wide, but that's because it's not the same for everybody. It's not the same for everybody. I wouldn't go more than 4, because if you're going more than 4, then you're going to have an issue with your sizing, or you're going to be pretty close to those limits or breaking the rules for those limits. And 50K is, and here's another thing actually that I forgot to mention. If you can't be successful with a 50K account, you're not going to be successful with a 100K or 150K or 200K account. You have to keep that in mind. You have to be able to be successful with the smaller accounts to be successful with larger accounts. They're only more difficult and a waste of your money. The 50Ks are, generally speaking, the best bang for your buck pretty much at every firm. So stick to those accounts. Those are relatively easy to pass. We've done it with the live challenge account. We're gonna do it again with the live challenge account. We've got the payout. It's something that is doable. I mean, there's a lot of people in the server that recently, at least in 2026, have gotten payouts. There's 7 that I can name off the top of my head. So another thing you guys do have to keep in mind is that you don't have to take every single trade. You do not have to take every single trade. I have a lot of accounts. I'm rotating accounts, right? And I'm alerting for a lot of people. So there's gonna be a lot of trades that are sent out for the most part, but you don't have to take every single trade, right? Even if I'm sending trades at Globex time and you're awake, if it's against your rules to be trading in Globex, don't trade in Globex. Just wait for the New York session. You have to keep that in mind. My rules are different than your rules. Everybody will have their own rules. And again, the 50K challenge account rules that we posted are a good starting point for every single person. I would take that, start with that, and adjust accordingly. I'm just waiting on people to type the question for the people who will end up watching this video and are like, "Why is it? Why'd you go quiet?" I kind of wanted to like frame this session around the community members, so that way I can tailor it more to you guys a little bit. But this should be applicable pretty much for everybody. Yeah, and Stacko, that's a completely normal thing. So the for the people that are watching the video, can't see the chat. Essentially, what I was speaking about earlier in terms of the inferiority complex type of situation. that's a completely normal thing, right? We're all human at the end of the day. We just have to realize / remind ourselves that stick to the rules, be consistent, and trading is supposed to be boring, guys. It's not supposed to be fun. And then at the end of the day, that's just how it is. It's not supposed to be fun, but we make it fun by doing it with the community, right? But I don't want you guys to like twist that aspect of it, because when people do that, they kind of get this gambling FOMO mentality or revenge trading. All of these things start to leach in. You have to make sure you're constantly reminding yourself that this stuff is supposed to be boring. You should be patiently waiting for your setup, right? It's all probability. Don't put yourself in a position where you know you're going to start that domino effect, like I mentioned a little bit ago. That's going to send you into that spiral, right? Once you do identify that, you'll save yourself a lot of headache. That's going to be like kind of a graduation point for you guys when it comes to trading, is when you're finally able to identify that and stop it from happening. That's why it is important. Yes, correct. It's important to have at least one account to fuck around and find out, if you are that type of person. That's why I mentioned that, once you hit your goal and you still have an itch to trade, go buy another account if you can. If you really, really need to trade and you can't afford another account, etc., turn off the charts, walk away. If you can't do that, sim account. Just do something to get you out of that limbo. You should know yourself best, and you'll be able to figure that out for yourselves eventually. All right. Does anybody else in the chat have any questions? Anything else that you guys want me to go over? Maybe explain a little bit more. Again, the session is for you guys, right? So I want to make sure that you are getting the questions that you have answered. All right. Maybe more details on beating the intraday drawdown for reference. So, intraday drawdown, it is harder. Obviously speaking, because you can't really look to ride a move. More so, you gotta make sure that you are having tighter stops, profit stops especially. Profit stops are going to be the most important thing to make sure that you do have really, really tight. So if you see that I do keep mine at 2 for my first trims, don't do that, because your firm obviously is going to dictate how you're going to trade a little bit, right? The rules that the firm has. Top step X, no trailing drawdown, no intraday drawdown, any of that stuff. So you don't have to worry about that when it comes to that firm. But if you are using a firm like Apex that does have the intraday trailing, make sure you're locking that profit in. Just try to lock that profit in. Don't look to ride a trade out, because again, your goal is to pass the account, right, and move on and get out of that trailing drawdown. So you want to make sure that you do accomplish that goal first before trying to reach a higher goal. Does that help, Stacko? Give a little bit more information for that. And it can be difficult, but again, if you go take a look at the 50K challenge account, we did kind of treat it like that. We did take majority profit, if not all. RCC did take at the first trim point. And I did that on purpose. We did it like that so that way anybody who is trading any firm should be able to follow, whether it's consistency firm, whether it's a firm with intraday trailing drawdown, etc. And that's why we didn't pass it in 2 days, which Top Step allows. We passed it in, I think it took us 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, something like that. So take that full profit. I never adjust my levels, bro. The only time I adjust my levels is if I create a new level, what I call the intraday level, and I watch it over the next couple of days. If it doesn't look like a good level, I remove it. Otherwise, all my levels stay the same. I have levels on my chart from 3 to 4 years ago that are still applicable to this day. What makes you differentiate from going sized up from the start and averaging up? So, if I'm front running an A+ setup, now this is some risk management, right? I size down, and I look to average up upon the confirmation of that A plus setup, right? Otherwise, if I'm taking my size up player right away, that means that the A plus setup most likely has confirmed already. If you are front running a play, you got to understand that it's not confirmed, right? So you are taking that risk, and if you are taking that risk, you don't want to be risking too much. And sometimes you'll see that I do reduce my stops. I'll make my stops a little bit tighter just in case the confirmation doesn't come and it ends up being the opposite. So all of these little things do add up when it comes to your risk management, and that's why it is important to, again, make sure that you are sizing accordingly, right? Now, a good example of risk management and implementation of that would be last night. So we knew that the market would have extremely low volume, right? So I sent a message out that understand the risk of if you are trading tonight, it would be a good night to not be trading. Understand that there's very low volume, and if you are trading, size down, size down. Now, because of me sizing down, I didn't hit my daily loss limit, but I still was red. It was, one of the first times in, I think, about we had a 4.5, 5 month streak going on of all green alerts. So I did get broken, but the key is survival, right? I didn't hit my daily loss limit, which still is good in my books because I didn't break any rules. I planned on losing that much maximum, and if I had hit that, then it is what it is. But I was below that, so that was a good thing. I still look at it as a good thing if you follow your rules. Still, you have to train yourself to understand that that still is technically good as long as you're following your rules, and you remind yourself that these are things that are set in place. You have to be comfortable with losing, right? That's part of the game. So once you do become comfortable with losing, you can really start to see yourself thriving in trading. Because again, no one has a 100% win rate. It's extremely unrealistic, right? Win rates are going to be, relatively speaking, anywhere from like 60 to 80% depending on what strategy you're using, right? So you have to be comfortable with losing. It's part of the game. Video, folks, I'm just waiting for chat, folks. Type up. For reference, if normal sizing is 5, what would be your sized up A plus setup amount? So I would do anywhere from 7 to 8. If your normal sizing is 5, I would do 7 to 8. Again, you don't want to size up insanely, right? You still want to keep it within a parameter that if you do take the loss, you're not hitting your daily loss limit within one trade. If you are, you're sizing too heavy. So your A plus setup sizing will be different than the next person's versus mine versus the next person, etc. And if your normal sizing is 2, even if you size up with one more contract, that's still completely okay. Whatever is comfortable for you. Because at the end of the day, um, everyone's sizing is going to affect their trading psychology differently. Video, folks, not over. Still waiting. Maybe I'll put this. I'll put the chat in view of the stream, and that might make it a little bit easier for the video, folks. For beginners, what do you recommend doing pre-market to prep and after the trading day? So, if you don't already have your levels in, this is a tough question to answer, Moo, because the thing is, this depends on your strategy, right? My strategy, I don't need to do any market prep besides knowing what the context is, right? I built the indicator, will give me my bias right away. I don't have to do anything market prep besides know if there's any important news for that day. If your strategy does involve you having to do some market prep, that's going to be a little bit of a different answer. And again, my levels don't change. So I always make sure that I do have levels marked. I've pretty much marked everywhere that we've been in on NQ. Any all-time highs I obviously don't have marked because we haven't been there, uncharted territory, so I don't need to do market prep. But if you don't have levels in, you got to make sure that you do put those levels in. You might have to do some market prep. Some people do need to spend about like 15 to 20 minutes doing some market prep. And again, guys, it's just really dependent on your strategy. And a risk related in a different way. You, as an advanced trader, do delay for higher payouts. Just take the payout space hits out 5 days. So what I try to do is I try to milk every single payout before I get the live email. As soon as I get the live email, I look to take my last payout if that's possible. I don't relatively always go for max payout like that's available. It is 5K, I believe, for the 50K accounts. I just take it before I get the live email. Because again, the thing that you want to do at the end of the day is you do eventually want to start funding your own account. And the futures resources in Stocks Hub, we do have that futures intro video that does go over what firms you can use for that, how to do that, and what I personally do myself. But if you know, here's the thing that you guys also have to remember. This is very subjective, right? If you're somebody who's in a financial burden type of situation and you put a lot of money into trading and getting that payout would financially help you, take that payout because that's going to put your mental at ease, right? And the biggest thing is, as we mentioned, trading psychology is everything. If you don't have a clean, calm mental, you're just going to screw yourself over in the future. And what happens majority of the time is if you are that person that needs that payout and you don't take it and you try to go for a higher amount, you end up breaking rules and eventually giving back everything or even blowing up the account and not getting that payout, right? And that hurts even more. And that makes it even more difficult for you to kind of get out of that because you've dug yourself mentally a little bit deeper. And when you do restart, it is a little bit more difficult. So again, the key is prevention, right? If you know that things are like that are going to happen to you, etc., take that payout. Take the payout. Nothing is wrong with taking the money. If that is your situation. If that is not your situation, you have a different mentality because the thing is, if you have consistent money coming from elsewhere and you're not relying on the trading money, your mental tends to be different than people who are relying on it in a sense, right? And that's why it's important to identify which person you are, what situation you are in, and that's why I said this is more subjective. NQ. So I have a scalping strategy, right? As you guys see, am done pretty much within an hour to maximum 2 hours within a day. And NQ provides me that opportunity compared to ES. I am looking to bring ES back, and I mentioned to you guys it'll be like 1 to 4 trades a day for ES if I am doing ES. Moo Sacco, would that be everything risk related? Mo, if you also have a question, you are free to ask. We'll try to keep this risk management related. If you guys do have any other questions, non-risk management related, I can look to stay back with you guys a little bit after this video is done because I don't want to keep the video too long for everybody. Okay. All right. Perfect. So video folks, we're going to end it here. I hope this was helpful. And as always, my DMs are always open. You guys are free to always ask me questions. I'm always open to helping out and answering. So, all right, video folks, we'll call it there.